Okay, so something really strange happened in late 2025. The United States just suddenly, and with basically no explanation, lifted sanctions against one of Brazil's most powerful and, let's be honest, controversial figures. Now, this wasn't some tiny policy tweak. No, this move set off a complete firestorm of speculation. So, what really went down? Let's get into it. Now, get this. The most explosive theory comes straight from a Brazilian magazine. They're claiming a massive, secret bargain was struck between President Lula and President Trump, and the alleged deal involved everything from social media censorship and Elon Musk's Starlink to a country's entire supply of rare earth minerals. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a political thriller, right? And that is the billion-dollar question we are tackling today. We're going to peel back the layers of this whole affair, separating what we actually know for a fact from all the speculation swirling around it, to try and figure out what really happened. All right, so to understand any of this, we have to start with the man at the very center of the storm, a Brazilian Supreme Court justice who's become one of the most polarizing figures in his country. So who is this guy, Alexandre de Moraes? Well, he's a justice on Brazil's highest court, the Supreme Federal Court. He's the guy leading these huge investigations into what they call fake news and anti-democratic movements. But his critics, well, they accuse him of massive judicial overreach, basically censorship. They point to his orders to suspend social media accounts, including X. And it was those actions that got him on the US government's radar and led them to sanction him for suppressing free speech. But the timeline here, this is where things get really wild. Look at this. In July 2025, the US slapped sanctions on Moraes. Then, by September, they've expanded them to his wife and an institute connected to him. Things are escalating, right? But then, just a few months later in December, poof, they're all gone, reversed, with almost zero official explanation. That kind of rapid whiplash is what makes this whole thing so incredibly strange. So, you might be wondering, how can the US even do this? What gives them the power to sanction a judge in another country? Well, this wasn't just some random executive order. They used a very specific and very powerful piece of legislation called the Magnitsky Act. The Magnitsky Act actually started out with a narrow focus on Russian officials who were involved in the death of an accountant named Sergei Magnitsky. But then, in 2016, it went global. Now, it gives the US president the authority to go after individuals anywhere on the planet for human rights abuses or major corruption. It's basically become one of the most important tools in America's foreign policy toolkit. So how's it work? Well, instead of sanctioning a whole country, it targets specific people. The US can freeze any assets they have in America, ban them from getting a visa to enter the country, and basically cut them off from the US financial system. It's a soft power weapon, right? It's designed to put pressure on people to change their ways without ever firing a shot. And get this, studies suggest it actually works about a third of the time, which is pretty significant. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the matter. We know who the judge is, and we know the law the US used to sanction him. Now we're faced with two totally different stories trying to explain what happened next. Now, here's the crucial thing. The only officially confirmed fact we have is incredibly, almost ridiculously simple. On December 12th, the US Treasury just quietly updated a list. It listed Alexandre de Moraes, his wife, and their institute as deletions. That's it. No press release, no big speech, no detailed justification. They were just off the list. So you've got these two competing realities. On one hand, there's the official version, which is, well, it's pretty boring. The sanctions were removed, that's it. Foreign policy experts figure it was probably a diplomatic move to de-escalate tensions. But then you have the story from the media, which is a total blockbuster. A secret backroom deal where Moraes agrees to back off on social media censorship, and in return, Brazil gives the US access to its valuable rare earth minerals and cuts its satellite ties with China. It's a heck of a story, isn't it? A grand bargain between world leaders? But we have to ask the critical question. Are there good reasons to be skeptical of this whole narrative? Let's break it down. First, you have to consider the source. The story started in a magazine that is well known for its political opposition to Brazil's president. Second, and this is a big one, not a single other independent news outlet or primary source has been able to confirm this very complicated deal. Third, there are just much simpler, more common explanations. And this is a key fact. A 2023 review found that a full 40% of Magnitsky sanctions get reversed in under 2 years, usually for plain old diplomatic reasons, just like the experts suggested. So if we push aside all the cloak and dagger speculation for a second, What can we actually learn from this entire episode? What's the real lesson here for all of us? I think we can boil down the key takeaway into three pretty simple steps. First, you've got to understand the tools. Things like sanctions aren't just rigid punishments. They're flexible tools of foreign policy that can be turned on and off for strategic reasons. Second, always question the narrative. Ask yourself, who benefits from this particular story being told? And third, always try to check the primary source. In this case, that was just a simple, boring update from the US Treasury. You know, when you step back, this whole case is really a perfect storm. It's this wild collision of domestic law in one country, international politics, and a media environment that can take a simple administrative action and spin it into a global conspiracy theory. And that really leaves us with one big question, doesn't it? In a world where a simple diplomatic move can be spun into a grand conspiracy with tech billionaires and rare minerals, how do we all get better at distinguishing the real, verifiable signal from all of the compelling but totally unproven noise?